And they were insulting him recklessly just now? Thinking of this, the faces of the two of them became extremely pale in an instant, cold sweat broke out on their bodies, and they were scared to death. Fred White reacted the fastest. He thumped and knelt directly in front of Orville Hong. While kowtowing, he cried and pleaded, "Fifth Lord, I was wrong. I apologize to you. I was blind and didn't recognize you. I opened my mouth to scold you. These D*MN old men and old ladies have nothing to do with me. Please spare my life." After he finished speaking, he knelt down, slapped himself and apologized again. He broke down and cried. He really didn't expect that the backing the boss of this scam company was actually the famous Orville Hong of Oris Hill. Such a big man, let alone him, can't afford to offend even with his whole family behind. He regrets now and wants to die. He just wanted to take this opportunity to offer Claire's mother a courtesy, so that he has the opportunity to contact Claire. Unexpectedly, before he got his wish, he would offend Orville Hong to death. If his father knew about this, he wouldn't have to kill himself? At this scene, the group of grandparents around was shocked. They also expected Fred White to help him get the money back, but who would have thought that in the next second, he would kneel directly on the ground and apologize to the man in Thompson's suit before him. And Elaine, who was quite proud just now, but now she was slapped a few times, embarrassed like a dead dog. Orville Hong snorted coldly and said to the people around him, "Since this guy has such a cheap mouth, you will give him 10,000 slaps in turn. When will you slap him 10,000 times?" Fred White was so frightened hearing the 10,000 slaps in the face, he thought he'd be beaten to death. At this time, Orville Hong's men pointed to Elaine, who was beaten up and spread out, and blurted out, "Fifth Lord, what about this Lady Wilson?" Orville Hong glanced at Elaine in disgust, and said lightly, 10,000 too. Elaine knelt on the ground with a frightened puff, and her whole body trembled violently. She was almost scared to death. She provokes Mr. Orville, so can she still live? At this moment, several of his subordinates stood up. Some grabbed Fred White and some grabbed Elaine, and immediately prepared to move their hands. Charlie has been watching this scene coldly in the crowd. When he saw his mother-in-law being beaten, he didn't want to intervene, because his mother-in-law has always been so cheap, it should be a lesson to her. However, if Orville Hong's men slap her 10,000 times, if they don't beat her to death, they will at least maim her. Then how can he explain to his wife? It would be very painful for his wife too. He felt that he had no choice but to manage. Just when a brawny man stretched his arms and was about to draw a mark on Elaine's old face fiercely, Charlie hurried forward and grabbed his wrist. Elaine screamed in fright at this time, closed her eyes and was about to get twitched, but suddenly realized that the fierce slap had fallen. When she opened her eyes, she was shocked. Charlie, her rubbish son-in-law, came out at this time and blocked the other slap. Her mind was short-circuited at once, but she didn't react. Why is Charlie so daring? Orville Hong didn't expect that someone would dare to stand up for this D*MN Lady Wilson at this time, and asked coldly, "Who are you? Do you want to die too?" Charlie smiled lightly, "Mr. Orville, right? Give me a face. You can beat this dog next to me, but my mother-in-law you can't." Orville Hong said with a sullen face, "This Lady Wilson is your mother-in-law? Then what makes you think that you deserve a face?" When he said this, Orville Hong was already angry. He has always been respected by countless people in Oris Hill, but today he has encountered disrespect one after another. First, there was a Fred White yelling in front of him, and a disgusting Lady Wilson chirping beside him. Now a young kid jumped out to point to himself. He really is the great Master Orville. What kind of cats and dogs dare to contradict him at will? Thinking of this, he immediately became furious and shouted to the people around him, "Kill this guy who doesn't love his life." Charlie smiled faintly when he heard the words, and said, "Don't worry, I'll make a call and let the person on the phone tell you." After all, he took out his cell phone and called Isaac Craven, the person in charge of Shangri-La. Once the phone was connected, he respectfully said to the convenience, "Mister, what do you want?" Charlie asked indifferently, "There is a man named Orville Hong in Oris Hill, do you know him?" Isaac Craven hurriedly smiled and said, "Mister, I know that name you mentioned. The outside world says that he is the underground emperor of Oris Hill. In fact, he is just a small gangster." After speaking, Isaac Craven said again, "This grandson knows that I am from the Wade family, and he wants to flatter me. He has begged me several times for a meal. I have never paid attention to him." "Why? Mr. Wade, do you know him?"